On a sunny morning, Gulliver slowly woke from his slumber to find himself lying on a soft beach, surrounded by an unusual silence. Attempting to sit up, he suddenly realized he couldn't move. Shockingly, he found his body tightly bound by numerous thin ropes, trapped as if in an invisible net. His limbs and torso were firmly tied to the ground, making even the slightest struggle seem futile. In this almost helpless state, Gulliver began to look around, hoping to find some clue as to how he had ended up in this situation. It was then he heard a series of tiny yet clear voices, like whispers carried from afar. As the voices drew closer, he lowered his head and was astonished to discover a group of people barely 6 inches tall, looking at him with a mix of curiosity and fear. "Look, the giant moved!" exclaimed one of the little people, their voice sharp and filled with surprise. "Keep your distance," said another, who seemed to be a leader. "We don't know if he poses a threat to us." Gulliver tried to remain calm, speaking in the gentlest voice possible. "Please, don't be afraid. I won't harm you. I'm just an ordinary man who encountered a shipwreck at sea. Where am I? And why have you tied me up?" The little people exchanged worried glances. Then the apparent leader stepped forward bravely and replied, "You are in the territory of Lilliput. We have bound you solely for our own and our country's security. Your size is unprecedented for us, and we must act cautiously." "I understand your concerns," Gulliver answered, "but I assure you I mean no harm. How can I help you to prove my sincerity?" After some deliberation, the leader said, "If you truly bear no ill will, then please allow us to take you to our king. He will decide your fate." The residents of Lilliput, after some discussion, decided to take Gulliver to their king. They transported him to the palace using a specially made stretcher, pulled by dozens of small horses. Gulliver was both perplexed and curious about everything happening around him. Upon seeing Gulliver, the king and his subjects were as shocked by the sudden appearance of this giant as Gulliver was by their tiny stature. After a series of friendly exchanges, the king inquired about Gulliver's story. Responding with humility, Gulliver said, "I am merely a traveler who by accident drifted to your shores. I seek your assistance to return home." The king of Lilliput, looking at his subjects, then said, "Mr. Gulliver, since you have shown such sincerity, we shall help you. However, before that, we wish for you to assist us with some matters." After a discussion, Gulliver agreed to follow the representatives of Lilliput to the border with their neighboring country, Blefuscu. He was informed that tensions between the two nations had reached a boiling point over differing opinions on the correct way to crack an egg. Although it seemed a trivial matter, it was nearly causing a full-scale war. On the way to the border, Gulliver felt both curious and uneasy. Can you believe a dispute over how to crack an egg almost led to war? "Indeed," replied an official from Lilliput. "This dispute has lasted for generations and is now more tense than ever." Upon reaching the border, Gulliver noticed that both sides were prepared for battle. He felt a deep sense of gravity about the situation and requested a meeting with representatives from both countries, hoping to find a way to avoid war. In a makeshift tent, Gulliver stood before the delegates from Lilliput and Blefuscu. He appeared as a peace envoy. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are here not to witness the start of a war, but to find a peaceful solution." A delegate from Lilliput couldn't help but say, but they have been cracking eggs the wrong way. We cannot simply abandon our traditions." A delegate from Blefuscu followed. "Exactly. We cannot forsake the correct methods passed down by our ancestors." Gulliver gently gestured for them to calm down. "I respect your adherence to tradition, but let us consider, is this dispute worth the loss of countless lives? Can we find a resolution acceptable to both sides, one that respects tradition without leading to war?" The delegates looked at each other, then fell silent. Gulliver continued, "I propose a competition to see who can crack an egg most efficiently and elegantly. This is not just a contest, but also an opportunity to celebrate each other's culture and traditions. Regardless of the outcome, we shall celebrate together, thus ending this dispute peacefully." In the subsequent competition, the representatives of the two countries showcased their skills under the watchful eyes of Gulliver and many spectators. Through Gulliver's wisdom and efforts, the people of the two nations began to embark on a new chapter of reconciliation and friendship. In the days that followed, Gulliver became involved in the daily life of Lilliput, assisting in building construction, moving heavy objects, and even serving as a guest of honor at their grand celebrations. However, as time passed, Gulliver began to feel uneasy. He realized that no matter how much of a hero he might be, he was ultimately an outsider and yearned to return to his own world. One night, Gulliver secretly repaired a small boat preparing to leave. Just as he was about to set sail, the King of Lilliput found him. "Gulliver, why do you wish to leave us?" the king asked. Gulliver responded, "Your Majesty, every day I've spent here has been incredibly precious, but I must return to my world, where I truly belong." The king was silent for a moment, then said, "We understand. We hope you will remember Lilliput, its people, and your adventures here." With tears in his eyes, Gulliver bid farewell to the people of Lilliput. He raised the sails and set off into the unknown seas, his heart filled with gratitude and fond memories of Lilliput. Days later, Gulliver was rescued by a passing ship. He shared his adventure with the crew, despite many of them expressing skepticism. A burly sailor shook his head with a laugh. "Mr. Gulliver, your story sounds like it came straight out of a fairy tale. Lilliput, how could that possibly be?" Gulliver smiled warmly at the crew, turned, and walked towards his luggage. From it, he produced several extraordinarily unusual and mysterious items. First, he displayed a tiny pig from Lilliput, which was so minuscule that it hopped lively in Gulliver's palm, no bigger than an apple, astonishing all the watching sailors. The sailors, deeply captivated by the scene, reached out eagerly to touch the small, lively creature. Even the previously laughing, burly sailor was now filled with surprise and curiosity. "Mr. Gulliver, I can't believe this is real." Next, Gulliver pulled more intriguing items from his bag. A set of royal cutlery from Lilliput, so finely crafted that each piece was no larger than the sailor's fingernails. The exquisite workmanship on each utensil left everyone in awe. "These precious items bear witness to my journey," Gulliver explained. "They not only prove the reality of my experiences, but each detail is filled with wonder and adventure." As Gulliver presented each of the rare treasures, the sailors' doubts gradually turned into admiration and amazement. Upon returning to England, Gulliver felt like a completely different person. He viewed the world around him with new eyes, cherishing peace and understanding more than ever before. Gulliver decided to document his travels, hoping that sharing these extraordinary adventures would inspire others to think and change. He wrote down the story of Lilliput, detailing his life there and the important life lessons he learned from its tiny inhabitants. Ultimately, Gulliver's Travelogue was published. Although many viewed it as pure fantasy, others were moved by its profound messages. Gulliver's story encouraged those willing to listen to explore the unknown, cross boundaries, and seek common understanding and peace. For the rest of his days, Gulliver often reminisced about his time in Lilliput, cherishing the experience as a priceless treasure in his heart.